Yeah, my hands are usually doing other things, so when I'm talking, they're stuck on a mouse or something else. So
Yeah, I'm very expressionistic. I knock things
yeah,
over all the time. These hands just have a mind of their own. So,
yeah. Okay, looks like it's working. Hi, Drama. Anybody that would like to join the panel, please raise your Zoom hand and we'll bring you on in.
Hi, Jeffrey. I just realized I was muted.
Um, yeah, I saw your mouth move, so I knew you were saying something. My cat came through and rearranged all my desktop here.
That was nice of them.
Yeah,
very thoughtful.
he loves to hit buttons.
Morning, Hubert.
Yeah, so far not too bad, considering it's a nice day outside, but not super warm yet. But
Oh, but the sun's shining in the windows and blowing your hair off.
yeah,
You have wind, Marty?
Not today, we don't know, but it's been windy,
Yeah.
like all the way from last weekend, really up till the last couple of days, and it finally calmed down.
Yeah, we got cheated out of a spring this year. I think it's going to go directly into summer as soon as this cold spell breaks. Apparently all of the northern United States has been cold this last week. Their friends in New York were complaining that it was down in the 30s.
yeah, it's been screwy weather. The rain's been nuts. Although where Brendan is, she's you said 7 to 10 inches.
Yep, over the next 5 days, we should have 7 to 10 inches.
Where are you?
Arkansas,
You're having snow. Are you talking snow?
rain,
Oh,
Rain.
lots of rain,
oh.
rain and tornadoes.
I was going to say, I didn't think it snowed that far south.
We get about one good rain a year, or one good snow a year, about a foot. We all get to go out and play, and then it disappears in a few days.
All right, Clint.
Good morning. How's everyone doing this morning?
Well, I guess
Not too bad.
the day's early though. We'll get back to you on that.
You're an airplane this morning. You're a jet fighter this morning.
Yeah, no more nice, beautiful dinner places. So, but that can be changed in a minute.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, we're going to get started here. Welcome everybody to the Digital Forum, the place where we bring in great speakers and answer your questions on different types of photography and that. Today we have Brennen Nicole talking about astrophotography. Actually, it's the intro to Astro and the effects of light pollution, which I can tell you from where I am, there's a ton of light pollution, unfortunately. So I don't get to do this as much as I used to. But we'll get started here with Brennen was born on Earth Day and raised in Northwest Arkansas, later attending UCA for graphic design and photography. Once Brennen graduated in 2008, she began working in the construction industry. After almost 2 decades of being in a high-paced environment, she decided to pursue her passion for photography and mix it with her love for the outdoors. She has had privilege of visiting some of the most breathtaking locations. Through her photographs, she aims to inspire others to appreciate and conserve the natural wonders surrounding us. She also believes that education and hands-on learning experiences are invaluable in nurturing creativity and enhancing technical skills. So she has decided to dedicate herself to teaching photo workshops. Brennen became an ambassador in 2021 for the Arkansas Tourism and Spencer's Camera and Photo, specializing in Astro modifications in 2024. And we'll post it again. Her website is brennennicole.com, and it was on the email that we sent out. If anybody has questions during her presentation, please just stick them in the Q&A, and I will interrupt her and ask the questions. Try not to use the chat because I can only watch one thing at a time. So with that, let me change the spotlight over to Brennen. Let's see, replace spotlight. There we go. There she is.
Awesome. I'm about to share my screen, and when I do that, I'm actually going to turn my video off. I talk with my hands, so that way you guys aren't distracted with this. So 1 second, I'm going to get this turned off and then share my entire screen. All right, here we go. All right, so today we're going to talk about the intro to Astro and the effects of light pollution. All right. So again, I was born on Earth Day. I was named after the Irish Catholic patron saint of navigators. I graduated from UCA with a Bachelor's of Art degree with an emphasis in graphic design and photography. I actually began my professional career in the commercial construction field in 2008. It was the only thing that was hiring during the recession. That led me into commercial construction for the next 2 decades. After that, I left to pursue photography. And again, like you said, I became an ambassador for the state of Arkansas in 2021. I'm also a leader for the Dark Sky Association in Arkansas, the Arkansas Natural Sky Association, and I'm a member of the International Dark Sky Association as well. All right, where I have gone, I have taken some really cool adventures. I have road tripped across 35 states. I've hiked over 1,400 miles, and I've captured 481 waterfalls. I've also visited over 100 national and state parks and forests, and I have lost too many nights' sleep to count, but each moment has ignited my passion for adventure and night photography even more. All right, I also own and operate Brennen Nicole Photography, which is an adventure photography-based company that focuses on education and travel. So I teach both local and out-of-state photography workshops that's geared towards capturing amazing landscapes, learning new long exposure techniques, and just taking some really cool epic adventures in the same time. All right, where you should start whenever you're shooting the stars. We're going to delve into the correct gear that you need, the necessary camera functions you need to set, what settings to use, and how to focus at night. We're going to go over the alignment and movement of the Milky Way, the useful apps that help me plan a night under the stars, the different types of astro images you can capture when you don't have the Milky Way, and where to go see the stars, and which also happens to be my why. So what is astrophotography? So it is the art and science of capturing images of celestial objects like planets or stars or galaxies. It involves using specialized techniques to take these special pictures of the stars that are millions of miles away. And when you mix the night sky with a landscape image, it's now called an astro landscape or a nightscape image. And this is where I specialize. There's different types of astrophotography. Again, you can shoot just the Milky Way core. You can get into doing astro landscapes like I do. You can do the moon, star trails, twilight images, and meteor showers, which we're all going to just go into the basic settings today. Okay, so what is the Milky Way exactly? The Milky Way is a barred spiral galaxy that is home to our solar system and many other stars, planets, and celestial objects. It's called the Milky Way because it does appear like a faint milky band of light seen stretching across the night sky. People who have never seen it, and I've taken them out to see it, they think it's just a cloud. Your camera, of course, picks up way more detail than your eye sees. It is estimated to be about 100,000 light years in diameter, and it contains between 100 and 400 billion stars, as well as gas, dust, and dark matter that's in a spiral, like a spinning pinwheel. Our visibility of the Milky Way is restricted to the nearest 1,000 to 2,000 light years away. Our solar system is actually located within one of the Milky Way spiral arms, about 25,000 light years from the galactic center. The Milky Way is actually part of a group of galaxies called the Local Group, which includes Andromeda Galaxy and several smaller galaxies. The Milky Way and the Local Group are part of an even larger structure called the Virgo Supercluster. And the Milky Way has played a significant role in human history and mythology. It continues to be a source of fascination and study for not only astronomers and scientists, but also photographers. And us studying the Milky Way, it just helps us better understand our universe and our place in it. And if you look here, you can even see we are right here in the solar system. Okay. So now we're going to go into what gear you need. Okay, you are going to need a DSLR or mirrorless camera. Cell phones will nowadays pick up a lot of celestial objects. However, you're just not going to get the quality you want without having a really good camera. You're going to need a wide angle lens that can open up to at least f2.8. The lenses that I've personally used, I started on a Rokinon 14mm f2.8. They're about $250 to pick up. It's a great starter lens. It's a full manual lens, so there is a little bit of a learning curve to it. But it's very cheap and it'll get you started. And then I moved up to my Canon 16-35 f2.8, but I was noticing what's called coma in the stars in the corners, or wide angle distortion that was happening, and I didn't like that. Excuse me. So I actually went to a 24-70, but I wasn't getting enough of my foregrounds, and so I went to a Tamron 15-30 f2.8. It's about a fraction of a Canon lens, and it is my absolute all-time favorite night lens ever. And every one of my pictures, even this one to the side, was taken with that Tamron. And now if I'm shooting on my, excuse me, I have a RF camera, so now our RF lenses, so now my 15-35 I will use on my Canon R5. You have to have a tripod. If you want to use that QR code, it'll take you to my favorite one on Amazon. It's less than 2 pounds. It's a Geekoto. It's pretty much not any kind of name brand, but it's durable. And it's super lightweight, so you don't have to pack in a lot if you're doing backcountry stuff like I do. You're going to need an intervalometer, and you will need a large, fast memory card as well. Okay, so why do we need these items specifically? You're going to need a camera that will allow full manual control as well as focusing manually with the lens. An advanced camera is just going to handle those high ISOs better. You will need a fast lens. It allows for wider apertures and lower ISOs. And the Milky Way is just not nearly as visible at f4 than if you shot it at f2.8. The tripod you're going to need is just a must. There's just no way to hand hold for as long as our shutter speeds need to be. Not even with image stabilization. Intervalometers are very handy when it comes to stacking. They're also great to use as a shutter release. You don't shake your camera while pressing the shutter button. But most newer cameras are going to have these built in, and they're just much more reliable than trying to use a third party. You'll need a large memory card as well because you're going to take long exposures in RAW, and that means you're going to have large file sizes, and it's just a lot of data to collect. You are no longer going out taking a picture, you are going out to collect data at this point. All right, topic 2 is your in-camera and lens functions. Again, be sure you're shooting in RAW format. You do not want the camera to compress your image whatsoever. You're going to turn off both long exposure noise reduction and high ISO speed noise reduction. Doing the noise reduction in camera actually leads to losing signals from the faint stars that's hidden in the noise. The camera will perceive those tiny spots as noise, and noise reduction will actually kill the fine detail in your stars. And it also increases your processor activity, which will cause your sensor to heat up as well. So when you're shooting star trails, also that delay in that processing time will lead to huge gaps in your star trails. So just turn all that off. Also know how to change your temperature or your white balance in camera to Kelvin. Stars are going to be shot around 4,000 degrees. So this will help cool down the sky to more of a blue tone with white clouds and white light pollution. Some people's artistic preference is more of a black sky with the warmer tones of pollution and light. So you can always adjust back to a warmer Kelvin degree or just go to auto. And because you're shooting in RAW, this is also something that you can easily manipulate 1,000 degrees in post-processing with no issues. Also, check your lens for image stabilization and turn it off. It can also be called vibration compensation or VC on some lenses. So if you're always on a tripod, just turn it off. Otherwise, it can cause shake. Topic 3 is the correct settings to actually capture the Milky Way. First setting I go to is my ISO. Its importance is it determines the amount of light that actually reaches the camera's sensor. And when you increase the ISO, the camera is going to become more sensitive to light, which allows more light to be captured in a shorter amount of time. This is very important when you're capturing deep space objects. The downside, though, is when you increase your ISO, it has negative effects on the final image. The most significant is when you increase ISO, you introduce noise. It's because the camera's sensor amplifies the light that it's receiving, and as you increase the ISO, the amount of noise that gets introduced to the scene also increases. It will result in a loss of detail and also a decrease in the overall quality of the final image. Another issue you get when you increase your ISO in astrophotography is the impact it has on dynamic range in the image, because you're working in the smaller numbers on the left side of the histogram. So you just don't really have a whole lot of dynamic range to work with to begin with. So that dynamic range I'm talking about is just referring to that brightness levels captured in an image from the darkest shadows to the brightest highlights. And when you increase your ISO, that dynamic range is going to cause like a loss of detail in highlights and shadows. So to mitigate those negative effects of increasing your ISO, we do what's called stacking. And it just involves taking multiple images at the same settings and then combining them. And I'll go into more on this in just a little bit. But just to get started, a beginner Milky Way ISO setting, just start somewhere between 1600 and 6400, right in the middle at 3200 is a great starting point. You're just going to need to find a good balance between capturing enough light and minimizing noise depending on your camera's make and model. If you have a crop sensor, you're going to have a higher ISO period just because they don't allow in as much light, 1.6 times less amount light, in fact. So again, starting somewhere probably about 3200 is a great starting point. The next setting is your aperture. It determines the amount of light that's entering the lens, and it affects your depth of field and sharpness of your final image. So just like your eye, when we are in a darker area, our pupils are going to dilate and our eyes get really wide just to try to let in as much light as possible. But what we see just isn't as sharp or as detailed. And so the lens is doing the same thing. So when you're capturing as much light as possible, it's very crucial to create a high quality astro image. So when you have a wider aperture, more light can reach the sensor, which allows for shorter exposure times and increased detail. But the downside is your reduction of depth of field. So a wider aperture is going to create a shallower depth of field, and it's going to result in a loss of detail in the foreground or the background, depending on where you're focusing. So there's also that coma effect I was talking about on the stars, that wide angle distortion, and it makes them look like UFOs. And so another issue with using that is the impact it has on the sharpness. So when you use a wider aperture, the edges of the lens become less sharp, resulting in a decrease in overall image quality. This is very noticeable in the corners where aberrations occur. So to help fight that negative effects, we do what's called stopping down or narrowing the aperture. So it just involves using a narrower aperture just to increase the depth of field just a little bit and improve sharpness while still allowing enough light to reach the sensor. This challenge with this technique is finding that balance between the right aperture and exposure time to capture enough light while maintaining sharpness and depth of field. But just to go out and get started, a great starting point, f2.8, or just the widest your aperture can go. But again, I'm always going to stop down one. And so I shoot at f3.2, which helps eliminate that coma off the stars in my corners. The next setting is your shutter speed. So it's going to determine the amount of time that the sensor or that the shutter remains open, and it just allows the light to reach the sensor. It's going to determine how long before the eyeball blinks, right? And just like the human eye, when you are in low light, you're going to stare a long time to try to see the scene. So just like that in astrophotography, the objects being photographed are very faint, and capturing them requires as much time and light as possible. When we use a little bit longer shutter speed, more light can reach the sensor, which allows for increased detail. But using longer shutter speeds also has negative effects as well. As long as you can introduce motion blur, you can accidentally kick your camera or things move like a wind blows and blows things in your frame. So just as the longer it's open, the more chance you're going to have blur. Another issue with using the longer shutter speeds is it's also going to bring in noise to the image because the longer the shutter remains open, the more heat the camera sensor generates, and that just introduces noise. And that's again going to decrease that image quality. So to combat the negative effects of longer shutter speeds, we will do what's called tracking. And so that's where you use an actual motorized mount or an Astro tracker to track the movement of the stars as it moves across the sky, which just allows for longer exposure times and lower ISOs. But if you just want to get started, a beginner shutter speed is somewhere between 15 and 30 seconds. Again, it's all going to depend on ambient light and light pollution you're fighting. You can use the rule, what's called the rule of 500, and you take your focal length divided by 500, and that's your shutter speed. Take 500 divided by 20 millimeters would be 25-second shutter speed. All right, so next is just you got to worry about your focal length and your focusing. Excuse me. So you just set your focal length. You want to encompass part of the foreground and the sky, which is why I shoot wide angle. So the more you actually zoom in, the faster your shutter speed has to be to avoid to see star trails. So I will usually shoot at like 18 millimeters on a 15 millimeter lens. Again, this is going to help cut out that wide angle distortion in the corners as well. When I go to focus, you're going to obviously set it to manual focus, and then there's going to be an infinity section on your ring, and you just turn your focus ring into the infinity section. Change your screen to live view. It really helps to look at it in live view. And you can zoom in to like the sky portion and then just kind of dial in that focus ring in that infinity section until those stars look like twinkling little pieces of glitter. And once you get it there, you're focused and set. More modern cameras, mirrorless cameras nowadays have what's called manual focus peaking, MF peaking. It's in your menu settings. Go turn it on to red, and then all you have to do is go out, turn your focus ring to infinity, and then watch your stars in live view turn to red, and you know that you are in focus. It takes way less time. It's kind of a cheat, and it's great. So again, just take a couple of pictures and just change any settings that you need to. Is it too bright? Work with your ISO. Do you need to work with any lighting, that kind of thing. So just kind of work with your focus and then until you nail your shot, and then you can pretty much be set all night. So just to recap, again, ISO 1600 to 6400, aperture of 2.8 to f3.2, shutter speed 15 to 30 seconds, just using the rule of 500. Shoot somewhere between 15 to 20 millimeters and focus to infinity. I've put all this into a really neat little Milky Way Made Simple e-guide that you can get by scanning this QR code off my website. I have a code. You can use the discount code GUIDE, and it's going to save you about 15% on that if you are interested. Okay, next is going to be alignment and movement of the Milky Way. Okay, so the Dark Horse Nebula, or the Great Dark Horse, called the Prancing Horse, is a large dark nebula that, from our perspective, obscures part of the upper central bulge of the Milky Way, and it's one of the largest groups of the dark nebula in the sky. The Dark Horse borders with the more famous constellations of Scorpius and Sagittarius. This is the area of the Milky Way that we are usually trying to go out and capture. It's called the core. It's approximately 2.5 light years wide and is 1,500 light years away. It shines at a magnitude of 6.8. And if you can see my mouse here, it's right here. Here's his butt and his back leg, his back, his head, and his little prancing foot. So that is the prancing horse. So the Milky Way core definitely has a season. So understanding how to set up your composition before you get on site is super important. You want to make sure you're facing the right direction. The Milky Way moves constantly. It's actually not it moving constantly. We are constantly spinning. So it's every picture you take, it's going to be in a different position. So just knowing that, and it also, so throughout the night it's moving, but it's also appearing differently each month. So we definitely have a season in the Northern Hemisphere. It's going to be between late February to mid-October. In the early season in late February, it's barely going to be making its appearance in the southeastern sky just before blue hour, about 4 to 5 in the morning. And it's going to be pretty parallel to the horizon. It's going to look like a flattened rainbow arch, just kind of right there on the horizon. But for each passing month, you can go ahead and bank. It's going to rise an hour earlier than the previous month. So if you're out around March, will be about 3 to 4 in the morning. April's about 2 to 3. May, you're going to start seeing it about 1 to 2 until you get into fall when it's happening just after sunset. And also for each passing month, it's going to be more vertical during its visibility time. So during the summer months, you're like July, you're going to look at it straight up and down. It's also going to move across the southern sky a little bit more each passing month. So in February, it's going to be more in the southeast, but by October, it's in the southwest. During July, it's due south. So that is super important to know when you're going out to take a picture. And again, you can't photograph the core during certain lunar phases throughout the month during the season. So if the moon is up during the visibility hours, just go ahead and know you're not going to get the Milky Way. You can see why we all get obsessed to go shoot the Milky Way. We only get so many days each year to do it. So now that you know that it moves and you need to know where to look, I have certain apps that I use to help me plan my nights out. I use two in particular, and that's Photo Pills and Planet Pro. Photo Pills, I'll use the Sun tool, the depth of field calculator, spot stars, and the night AR function. And in Planet Pro, I use the planner, the virtual viewfinder, which is virtual reality, and then the dark sky ephemeris as well. So to just delve into Planet Pro real quick. So here's the sun tool. You just enter the date and the location you want to shoot, and it's going to give you a snapshot of the day real quick. It's going to tell you the sunrise and the sunset time, not only that, but blue hour, golden hour, and what time if the Milky Way starts becoming visible. If there's a moonrise, it will also show it in here as well. So it's just great to see exactly what's going on throughout your day and how to plan your day shot. The depth of field calculator is really great here, especially when you're just starting out in astrophotography and you're shooting wide open. You're going to have issues with your focus to infinity, so things in your foreground are going to be blurry. And how do you combat that? That's because you're actually pushing past your hyperfocal distance, and that's the distance beyond which all objects can be brought into acceptable focus. And so you can use what's called the depth of field calculator inside of Photo Pills, and you just put in your camera's make and model, the millimeter you're shooting at, the aperture, and how far away the subject is. Like I was 20 feet away from like a barn probably. And it says, that's great, but your hyperfocal distance is 2 foot and 2 inches, 2 foot 3 inches. So everything 2 foot 3 inches in front of my lens to infinity is going to be in focus, but everything 2 foot 3 inches forward to my lens will be blurry. So if I want to combat that, I just need to lift my camera's focus up and not include that first 2 foot 2 inches into my frame, and I should have acceptable focus from that point forward. Okay, so night AR is another great feature, but it only really works great if you're on site. So you just pull it up and it's going to show you where you're at. You just slide your finger across the screen and it's going to change the time, and you're going to see how the Milky Way will move throughout the night with your scene, and you can kind of adjust accordingly. You can also change the date and the settings in the top right or the focal length in the bottom here, and that way you can get an accurate composition. Excuse me. Spot stars. This one is probably the most important tool inside of Photo Pills. So it gives you the correct shutter speed for actually shooting stars. You tell the camera's model the focal length you're shooting and the aperture, and it's going to tell you what's called the NPF rule. So I told you about the rule of 500 earlier. It's actually a great starting point, but it's not where you want to stay. You will still see trails using the rule of 500. And so we will put our information to this and it calculates using the NPF rule, and it takes into account the megapixels of your camera. And it now tells me, yeah, okay, 25 seconds was great, but really with your camera's make and model, you can only get 5.78 seconds, which is not even 6 seconds. That's 5 seconds before you're going to see a blur. So that means if I'm going to be, if you think about your exposure triangle now, so if you've got to shorten your shutter speed that much, 5 times, you're going to either need to open up your f-stop drastically, but you can't because you're as open as you can get pretty much, or you're going to have to raise your ISO. And so that means that's our only option at that point is to raise our ISO. So that's going to introduce noise. This is why we stack. Once you start using the NPF rule, you have no other option but to either stack or track. If you're using the NPF rule, you're stacking. So Planet Pro is a little bit more advanced. It was created by an astronomer and it is very advanced. So it's my favorite to use when I go out to plan. I'll just say that. When you need to do something ahead of time, this thing is like spot on. So if you've never been somewhere before, this is what you want to use. It has 24 ephemeris features that track everything from sun, moon, night photography, eclipses, time lapse, rainbow position, tide height, and even like artificial objects like satellites. Mine's always usually on Milky Way Seeker. It will tell you the elevation angle of the core, how many days the composition that you have set in the screen is possible, and even has a virtual reality function that I'm telling you is so spot on, it's scary. So all you have to do is set your focal length and you drop your camera's pin and it just does all the work for you. In this example, I was going to go to Lower Blue Lake in Colorado to do astrophotography for wildflowers. I've never been there before at this point. I did not have a time where I could go drive 17 hours to scout this location. So I knew I had to like plan it well before I got there. So I opened Planet Pro, went to Lower Blue Lake just like you would in Google Maps, dropped my finger, set my camera right there, set my scene to the south where I knew I'd be shooting towards Mount Sneffels. I wanted to know exactly where and when I needed to be. And so then I went to the virtual reality function by clicking this down here and hitting virtual reality. And then it's scary about how it tells me at 10:32 is when I was needing to be there. And this is how spot on it is. So here's what it showed me in virtual reality at 10:32. This is where I needed to be to get this composition. At 10:32, this is the composition I got. So you can see there's Mount Sneffels compared to Mount Sneffels, the whole range, everything, the basin. So super spot on. And just so you know, for some just some EXIF data here, this was a blue hour blend. So my foreground was I think there's actually 5 images focus stacked at ISO 100 f11, 30 seconds. And I had to focus stack, so I was so close to that lupine bunch just to get that all in focus all the way to the horizon. And then I sat there and didn't move and I waited for the stars to align. And then I took those shot at ISO 20,000, f3.2 at 6 seconds because I was using a different camera at that time. And I stacked 25 images to reduce the noise since I was shooting at ISO 20,000. The dark sky ephemeris also is really great, so you don't have to bounce back and forth from like a dark sky map or a different app. They have one built into their app as well. Again, you just drop your pen, scroll over at the top where I was on Milky Way Seeker. I just scrolled over to dark sky, and it tells me that this was actually a Bortle 3 sky, which is where I need to be to shoot Milky Way anyway. All right, so you've heard me talk about stacking a few times. We're actually going to kind of talk about that a little bit more now, and just some of the advanced techniques of shooting the Milky Way. So stacking consists of taking multiple photos with all of the same settings, and you use post-processing software which will stack and realign the stars for you. So this becomes necessary when we follow that NPF rule, and we have to keep our shutter speeds around 5 to 6 seconds to avoid trails. So we must increase our ISO to astronomical levels to achieve that. So when we raise our ISO to that high level, we're going to have much more noise and hot pixels. But when we complete that post-processing, those hot pixels and noise are drastically eliminated. So in every image you take, that noise and hot pixels are all in different spots. But when you stack those pictures together, what it does is it averages out the noise and it finds what's a star and what's noise, and it deletes the noise and then keeps the star and then puts the stars all back together. And it also gets rid of, like, say a plane flew through 2 or 3 of your frames, it will get rid of a plane as well. So you get these really clean shots that are going to have super tack sharp stars and like much less noise. The stacking process is going to use specialized software which aligns each frame precisely and merges them together. Like I said, it's going to get rid of any unwanted artifacts like planes or satellites, but it also is going to get rid of any like shooting stars. So you will have to mask those back in if you want to keep a shooting star. Stacking is just a widely used technique in astrophotography, and it can be applied to various types of imaging, including wide field shots of the night sky, detailed close-ups, and individual celestial objects. The software you would use would either be Starry Landscape Stacker or Sequator, just depending on if you're Mac or PC. Mac, you are Starry Landscape Stacker. If you're a PC, you're Sequator. And Sequator's free. So there's different levels of Milky Way photography. Like I said, if you're just getting started, that single shot taken at ISO 3200, f2.8, rule of 500, you're going to get a lot of compositions in a night, especially if you incorporate some low-level lighting, which we'll discuss in a minute. But even if you're shooting at those lower ISOs, you're still going to have noise, and your Milky Way is just not going to be as prominent. So then you're going to move into what's called stacking, and you're going to stack those images by taking multiple photos, 10 to 25 images, all shot at a higher ISO. With a closed down aperture at f3.2, you're going to be using that NPF rule, about 5 seconds, and you're stacking them. This is going to drastically reduce the noise, but it's not going to completely eliminate it from your foreground. They're still hiding in your darks in your foreground. You're going to get much cleaner images, but you're still going to lack that depth of field because you're shooting wide open, right? So it's still not going to be that really tack sharp foreground you want, but you're going to be able to pull off quite a few compositions in the night, especially with low level lighting. But once you start really taking it to another level and you want to blow these up and print these, 20 by 30, and you really want to start honing in on noiseless, clean photos, this is when you're going to start looking into what's called blue hour blending. And you're going to do your foreground, you're going to capture that at blue hour at ISO 100 f11 30 seconds. You're going to then wait for the stars and take multiple images, again, stacking them, or you're going to track them. And then you're going to stack and blend those and all in post-processing. So this is going to give you the greatest depth of field with the least amount of noise possible, but you're not going to walk away with a bunch of different images in the night. If you come back with 2 compositions, that's a great night. And so it's just very much patience game with when you start getting into the tracking and the blue hour blending. Okay, so sometimes you can't shoot the Milky Way, so what else can you go out and shoot at night? So there's different types of astro images you can still do throughout the seasons or throughout the months. I love shooting the full moon. So you got to understand the lunar phases throughout the month. You're going to have new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, third quarter, waning crescent. And this happens throughout. So just going out and knowing when you're going to shoot these, like new moon would be when you go out to shoot the Milky Way, and a full moon, obviously you could get really cool light paintings by using the moon. So settings to capture a fuller moon, you're going to want a large zoom lens. So somewhere like a 100 to 400, a 150 to 600, something like that. A great starting point was what we call the Looney 11 rule. It's for a full moon because it does give off a lot of light. You can do ISO 100 f11 at 1/125th of a second and adjust accordingly. However, the rule of thumb is if you're shooting at 400 millimeters, your shutter speed needs to be the reciprocal of that. So 400 millimeters needs to be 1/400th of a second shutter speed. That way it cuts out any kind of shake, because those lenses, kind of wobble when you hold them. So it kind of cuts that out for sure. A tripod helps, especially if that lens is heavier, and a 2-second delay will also help keep it sharper. So if the moon is not so full, you can still go out and shoot it under really cool conditions. The smaller the moon phase, the less light means wider apertures. So here's a great chart that kind of shows you how you would open up as the moon, if the moon is smaller. Another subject I love to shoot, especially in the winter, are star trails when the air is real crisp and the stars, the air is dry and you can really see the stars at night. So, Polaris. Polaris is also known as the North Star. It is a bright star located very close to the North Celestial Pole. It is the point in the sky around which the stars appear to rotate as seen from the northern hemisphere. It is the brightest star in the constellation Ursa Minor and can be easily located in the night sky by following an imaginary line drawn through the two stars that make up the end of the bowl of the Big Dipper. I will say this, the darker skies you go to, like a Bortle 1 sky, the less bright Polaris seems to be, and it just seems to be like every other star. It's a little bit harder to differentiate in darker skies. It is definitely not the brightest star in the sky. Because Polaris is so close to the celestial pole, it's going to appear to remain stationary while everything else appears to rotate around it. Again, this makes it a very useful navigational tool. It can be used to determine true north for anyone in the northern hemisphere. It is a bright and massive star with a luminosity that is around 4,000 times that of the sun. It's located about 430 light years away from Earth, and it's considered a relatively stable star with a surface temperature around 6,000 degrees Kelvin and a lifespan of about 100 million years. So when we shoot the star trails, most of the time we're going to aim to the north in our composition so we can line Polaris up like this, like you see in this shot. It's not always necessary, and sometimes it's just not conducive for your shot. Your subject doesn't face north, so then what do? You can still shoot really cool star trail directions, just depending on where you're at. If you're in the northern hemisphere, you face north, this is what they're going to look like. But if you face south, it almost looks like rainbow arches. I like facing either east or west because they kind of go in altering like different directions. They kind of meet in the middle and go in different directions. It's kind of fun to shoot east or west. So you don't have to shoot north. So just some really good beginner settings for star trail images. I go out when it's a fuller moon. So I will always go out when the moon's at least a quarter full to a full moon, and this helps me light paint the scene. That way I don't have to incorporate any lights whatsoever. I call this lazy astro. It's you just bring a chair and you just sit back and your camera does everything and you just watch the show. So you're going to start off about ISO 800 to 1600. Again, just depends on what ambient light you're fighting and the lunar phase you're shooting under. F2.8 to F4. So this is all going to be stylistic. If you stop down to F4, you're going to help bring out colors of the stars. So you see in this photo, there's oranges and blues in those stars. That's not added in. That's the color the stars are burning that I was picking up. So I just did that by using F4. If you wanted all white stars, you would just blow out and open up to F2.8, and that would blow out the stars and you would have white stars. So again, it's just stylistic preference on that. Throw that NPF roll out the window. We want star trails, and so I will shoot about 20 to 30 seconds. And I actually want a little bit of trailing action because what that does is it helps when in post-processing not have any gaps between my stars. It kind of helps one star lead into the next star in post-processing. You're going to take anywhere between 100, 500, even more if you want. Some people will sit out for 8-10 hours a night shooting all night long because the longer you shoot, the more dense and colorful these star trails become. So it just depends, again, how stylized you want this shot. You're going to use what's called star stacks. You can use star stacks or Photoshop. I like star stacks because it gives a very cool, you can do this shooting star effect. You can, it just makes them thicker and really helps with the gap filling between each shot, where Photoshop kind of makes them look more like dotted and dashed lines, I found, and they're thinner. And so I just prefer the way Star Stacks combines it over Photoshop. And you can do a lot more in Star Stacks. Photoshop seems to bog down and get really glitchy once you try to get about 100 in there. If you try to do 250, it really gets a little quirky. Star Stacks, you can put in, 1,000 and it runs just fine. But another downside, Photoshop, you can go in each individual layer, mask out any planes or anything. Star Stacks doesn't care. You're getting every plane. It's going to go through everything. So it kind of messes with your trail. So another cool time to shoot is at twilight. So people underestimate how awesome a shot can, just a normal twilight shot can be. So there's times of twilight that you can go out and shoot. Civil twilight is the brightest form. There is enough natural sunlight during this period that artificial light is not required to carry out outdoor activities. Only the brightest celestial objects like planets are going to be observed with the naked eye. Several countries actually use this definition of civil twilight to make laws regarding to like aviation, hunting, or headlight usage, street lamps, things like that. This is also the blue hour. Nautical twilight occurs when the center of the sun is between 6 and 12 degrees below the horizon, and this twilight period is less bright than civil. And then during astronomical twilight, most of the celestial objects can be observed in the night sky. Twilights are going to occur before Milky Way is visible, and it's just a great time to go out and just get the stars. Excuse me. Settings for just basic twilight images, again, go out at blue hour when the first start to appear. ISO 800 to 6400. It just depends on what part of twilight you're in. If you're right at the beginning, 800 should do you just fine. F2.8, F3.2. Again, you're not even gonna, you would use the NPF rule, but you're probably not even gonna need to go that long, about 3 seconds, because it's still so bright. But if you are shooting at like a higher ISO, you can still take like 4 to 10 images and just stack those to reduce any noise that you might pick up. Another fun thing to shoot are meteor showers. So to do this, you are going to need to know what meteor shower is happening when and what constellation they're originating from. So, and again, the lunar phase needs to be smaller, so otherwise you're not going to see as many. So this was a chart from a few years ago. Each year they'll put out a different chart to kind of help you understand the peak and how many meteors you can expect and what constellation and what the lunar phase is. So to get out and shoot the shooting stars, again, if you actually are shooting towards the constellation, your shooting stars are going to be shorter. If you shoot away from the constellation, they're going to come in and burn in and be longer and more twirly. So it just depends, again, stylistically, how do you want your shooting stars to look? You're going to have ISO 800 to 6400. All depends on where you're at and the lunar phase. F2.8 to A3.2, we want the NPF rule. We want tack sharp stars in our background. And a shooting star will come through your frame in about a few seconds anyway. You're going to set your intervalometer to take, I don't know, 250, 500 images, and you're just going to sit back again and watch the magic fall from the sky. After you get done taking all your images of the night, you will have to cull through them and find the ones that just have the shooting stars through them, put those into Photoshop, layer, blend, and mask, and then you can get a nice composited image. Excuse me. So one problem with night photography is light. And so how do you show off your foreground so people can actually see it and you can incorporate some interest to where it's not just black trees in the night sky, because that can be shot anywhere. How do you make it conducive to the scene? So there's 2 ways of doing that. First is by incorporating what's called low-level lighting. This is going to be used to light a night scene that otherwise would not be visible. It just helps create a more aesthetically pleasing night image by providing a natural looking contrast between the foreground and the night sky. So in this scene right here, I just had a cheap LED video camera light bar set off on a tripod to my camera on the right. So it helped illuminate the trees across the lake, and this is on its lowest setting. I actually was like, because it's dimmable, so I had it on its absolute lowest setting. And I even had a white t-shirt thrown over it to diffuse the light. And that still helped light up the trees across the lake. It lit up the weird pump thing in the middle, and it even lit up the grass in the foreground. You can also, there's other great low-level lighting options. There's a thing called lume cubes that you can get that are real small. They're also waterproof and magnetic, so you can stick them onto things or in the water to help illuminate stuff. So they're really fun to play with. You can also have just a phone app that's called Screen Light, and it helps you change your color and brightness as well. A lume cube is bright enough to light a longer distance, up to 100 foot. It comes with several diffusers too, but the only downside is they don't last very long. Charge-wise, you might get 30 minutes out of them. But that LED bar that I have set off in this one, I think I charge it once or twice a year, and I use it all year long, and it never fails me. So I think it was like 20 bucks on Amazon, so you can't really go wrong on that. And again, a white t-shirt thrown over it if it's still too bright just really helps add a diffusion to it. Make sure it's a cotton t-shirt, nothing with polyester or anything shiny. It seems to bounce light odd off of the highlights, but cotton kind of helps spread that light easier. It's an interesting effect. Another thing you can do is what's called light painting. It's a little bit more of an artistic effect. And you can use a moving light source to paint the scene. It can be done on or off camera. I could be standing off camera just shining a flashlight into my scene. like a low level light, but low level light's constant. Whereas like I could just use a moving light. And this one I actually had what's called a pixel stick, and it's a light printer. And I walked through the scene and just moved it as it printed this ribbon for me. You can do all sorts of things. Like there's just an entire makeup of light painting tools out there that you can go and play with and have so much fun at night, and just incorporate this to help bring out some interesting foregrounds. All right, so now we're going to talk about where to go shoot, which is also my why. Okay. So dark skies are absolutely crucial for astrophotography because it minimizes light pollution, which is the unwanted and artificial light that can obscure the stars and other celestial objects in our night sky. So when we're taking a photo of the night sky, any additional light source that can greatly reduce the visibility of faint stars will also blow out the highlights of your image. The human eye has the ability to adjust to low light conditions and perceive faint details, but cameras cannot. We are very limited in that regard. So that means we must take extra precautions to ensure that our equipment can capture as much light as possible from the stars and other objects that we want to photograph. In areas with high levels of light pollution, like cities and suburban areas, the night sky is much brighter than it would be in a remote location with minimal artificial lighting. This is going to make it more difficult to capture that beauty and detail of the night sky, especially if you want to incorporate astro landscapes where the horizon is in our frame. So therefore, finding a location with dark skies is absolutely essential to achieve the best possible results in our work. This is why we will always go west, right? We can use what's called the Bortle scale as a way to reference if a certain area is dark enough. So the Bortle scale is just measuring the quality of light in a particular location. There are 9 levels, and 9 being the most light polluted. And so if you want to shoot the Milky Way, you're going to need to be in at least a 4 and under. And honestly, I would say 3. 3 and under is the best that I would never go to a 4. You can, like I said, check this in Planet Pro, or you can just Google dark sky map online and they will have them pulled up. Okay, so my obsession with the night sky actually started with my papa and just one shooting star. So we spent many evenings of my childhood on a front porch swing staring at the stars, and he would always see a shooting star and he'd be like, oh my gosh, did you see it? Of course, I never would. I always missed it. And I never saw a meteor until the night he actually passed away. And that flying fireball forever changed the trajectory of my entire life. And so now every night when I go out to capture the heavens, I will see a shooting star. And I know that that is my papa. And he is telling me that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And so I know that because my very first image I ever captured was a gigantic flying meteor. So I just want everyone to be able to experience the magic of watching something like this. And sadly, over 1/3 of humanity can't even see the stars. So not only are dark skies essential to the rhythm of life on our planet, but it has also been proven to ease our minds and make us more compassionate towards others, which I think we can agree on. We need more compassion in today's society. So this is why light pollution is so important to me. One of my goals is to bring awareness to light pollution and that it's slowly causing our dark skies to fade away. It's a topic that's rarely discussed when it comes to our health, but it's greatly affecting us and nature. And it's a form of pollution that's grossly ignored. There are more than half the states in the country that have true dark skies. So half of our country is like completely light polluted. So I want to advocate not only to like my home state, but also our entire country, the dangers of light pollution to us and animals, and try to offer lighting solutions that would drastically cut down the pollution and energy waste and preserve the beauty and awe of the night skies. I am not worried about AI taking my job teaching photography because it will never replace me taking people to experience amazing fleeting moments. But I am worried about AL. Artificial lighting will take my job quicker than anything. I'm not going to have a dark sky space to teach soon. And our ancestors experienced a night sky that inspired science, religion, philosophy, art, and literature. But now millions of youth never even know the wonders of the Milky Way. So here's a dark sky map. So light pollution is just the inappropriate or excessive use of artificial light that's harmful to wildlife, humans, and our climate. But unlike any other type of pollution, it's totally reversible and it's easy to implement and it's immediate. Light pollution not only disrupts our view of the night sky, but it also has significant and often detrimental impacts on various species of plants and wildlife. Both plants and animals depend on the Earth's daily light and dark cycles for reproduction, nourishment, sleep, and protection from predators. Birds, definitely migratory species, highly impacted by light pollution. They rely on natural light cues for navigation. So artificial light from buildings, towers, and urban areas disorient them, lead to collision with structures or exhaustion because they'll just circle the light source. Artificial light at night can also disrupt their sleeping patterns and affects their health and behavior. Even frogs, which are highly sensitive to light, can disrupt their natural behavior. So they're nocturnal, and excessive artificial light can interfere with their breeding and feeding patterns and makes them more vulnerable to predation as they become more visible. This disruption to the frog populations is having cascading effects on ecosystems because they play a crucial role in controlling insect population. For billions of years, life has evolved with Earth's light and dark rhythm, and it's even encoded in our DNA. So life learned to operate under the natural night sky glow. And when night signifies when to eat, sleep, hunt, or migrate for many animals. And so we as humans have completely disrupted this by just lighting up the night. So brighter light does not always mean a safer environment as well, which most people think it does. Poor lighting can create a false sense of security and allows criminals just to hide in harsher shadows. The biggest misconception, the most common belief of using brighter light is it creates better visibility and enhanced safety. But like having an overly bright street light in an urban area that is aimed at deterring crime, but there's negative consequences like blinding glare can actually reduce visibility and make it harder to see. That glare creates shadows in dark areas, which is just a better hiding spot, as you can actually see in this slide here. It can also create issues while driving and create harsh glare on windshields. It's harder to see pedestrians at night. As much as 50% of outdoor lighting is actually wasted, and it just increases greenhouse gas emissions and contributes to climate change and renders us energy dependent. In the US alone, about 15 million tons of CO2 are emitted annually just to power residential outdoor lighting alone, which equals the emissions of about 3 million vehicles a day. To offset that carbon dioxide, we need to plant about 600 million trees annually. But not only that, about $3 billion of energy is lost to bad lighting each year. Tucson saved $2.2 million just in 2018 alone by upgrading its street lights and also reduced its light pollution by 7%. So even just leaving lights on in your night office buildings is wasting energy and just adds sky glow into the city. And just being dark sky friendly doesn't mean no light at all. It just means using the most efficient light and when it's only needed. There are over 1,000 dark sky certified fixtures on the market. So a very small change can save energy, money, and our night skies. And studies also suggest that this artificial light at night is affecting our human health by increasing our risk for obesity, sleep disorder, depression, diabetes, cancer, and more. According to National Geographic, light pollution is affecting human health, wildlife behavior, and our ability to observe stars and other celestial objects. Artificial light can wreak havoc on natural body rhythms in both humans and animals. Nocturnal light interrupts sleep and confuses the circadian rhythm in nearly all living organisms. One of these processes is the production of the hormone melatonin, which is released when it's dark and is inhibited when there's light. An increased amount of light at night lowers melatonin, which increases sleep deprivation, fatigue, headaches, stress, anxiety, and other health problems. Recent studies also show a connection between reduced melatonin levels and cancer. And in fact, scientific discoveries about this effect of artificial light have also got the American Medical Association to support effects to control light pollution and to conduct research on the potential risk of exposure of light at night. So what can you do to help? I have on my website, I have all the brochures that you can look over to see how you can help. You as an individual can install exterior lighting only where and when it's needed. Shield your lights so that they shine down so they don't go up into the sky. Lights should be no brighter than necessary. Put them on timers or dimmers or sensors if you need to, and be sure to use warmer colors and don't use a bluer light. You can also donate directly to the IDA if you would like. As a community, we can help advocate and adopt citywide lighting regulations and change street lights to a more efficient lighting method. Turn off commercial lights when they're not needed. You can advocate to join IDA as a community and work with the local government to keep the light on the ground and the skies natural. And ultimately, I would just absolutely love it if somehow I could get a community together once a year to do a annual blackout event where everybody just turns off the lights, where you can stand in the middle of like downtown Fayetteville, Arkansas, and see the Milky Way. I think that would be really neat. So what has astrophotography given back to me? Well, it's 100% diminished any kind of sense of fear of the night. I've reconnected with nature in ways I never thought possible. My problems now feel infinitesimal compared to the entire universe. It has pushed me to my limits, which has forced me to expand astronomically, and I have learned to slow down and run on celestial time. You become very patient when you do astrophotography. I do have some upcoming Astro workshops. If you are interested, you can scan this QR code. If you want to take a trip to Arkansas, I've got some beginner Milky Way workshops in the Buffalo National River, which is our international dark sky park. I do a tour through central Oklahoma where we go into some sand dunes and salt plains and some other cool places. I'm repeating New Mexico nightscapes for a third year in a row. We go to Chaco Canyon, the Bisti Badlands, and Shiprock. I've also got Galaxies of the Gods, where we're going to be in Valley of the Gods in Utah, and also White Sands Dreamscapes. If you ever wanted to be in White Sands after hours, I've got you next June. So I also have a bunch of photo freebies. I'm big on education. So if you scan here, it'll take you to my shop. You can get a lunar cheat sheet. It'll tell you how to shoot the moon. It's all mobile friendly. They fit right on your phone screen, so you can just save them on your phone and have it with you while you're out shooting. A star trail cheat sheet, an ISO chart, and an f-stop chart. Those are all going to be super useful when going out shooting night photography. And in conclusion, every night under the stars will become an adventure you're always going to remember. You will never be bored with photography once you learn how to shoot during every hour of the day. The person that you choose to be your night shooting partner will become one of your best friends. The conversations you guys will have under the stars will become unmatched. You can never pack enough headlamps, extra batteries, or memory cards. That is the truth. Astrophotography will take you to some of the most amazing places. Every February, you will be starting, your Wanderlust is going to kick off, and you're going to start planning your vacations around the stars. You're going to learn to sleep wherever and whenever you can while you wait just for the stars to align. One thing I've noticed, when my eyesight becomes hindered, all my other senses kick into hyperdrive. I can hear everything, smell everything. It's definitely a different vibe. You're never going to regret a night of missing sleep for the stars, but you will always regret sleeping on a clear moonless night. And what will always scare you the most at night will be armadillos. They sound like bears crashing through the woods. But other than that, thank you guys so much for listening to my spiel today on the stars.
Wow.
A lot of information.
That's a lot of information packed in just under an hour.
Crash Course 101.
Yep. No, it's a lot of great information in there. Got a couple of questions.
Sure.
Can you give the name of the tripod again?
Yes, it is
like?
Gikoto. Let me go back to it. Let me go back to this. Oh, good. Get that pulled up. It's Geekoto. And it's like I said, it's like a no-name brand, really. I found it on Amazon, and I've bought that thing so many times because it's so great and it's so light. I can carry like 2 or 3, and it weighs as much as me carrying one of like a heavy duty one. And I can set my lights on them, my camera. Oh, there it goes. Right there. That QR code will take you directly to the Amazon link.
And I'm going to get it as well because
I think it's under 2 pounds. It's amazing. And it's sturdy. I take it on every shot you've seen. I've shot on that tripod pretty much.
Yeah, that's an interesting looking tripod.
Yeah.
Yeah, priced right too.
Yeah,
like nicer.
Yeah, you can afford to go tear it up.
One of the things you had listed there for equipment is intervalometer, and as you know, you said you have an R5. Most of the modern day cameras have intervalometers built in.
Yeah, they're built in. Most of them do. If you have a DSLR, they're not, but if you have a mirrorless, they usually have them built in now. I prefer a built-in one because it's pretty much a fail-safe. You don't have to worry about connecting anything to your camera. I can't stand wired wireless intervalometers because of frequency interference you can have with somebody else shooting. You can actually screw up somebody else's shot. Yours will affect theirs if you're on the same channel. You got more pieces to keep up with. It's just no fun. So I always use my internal if I can.
Yeah. Also, you don't need one if you're only doing single shots. If you're not doing star trails or whatever. A lot of
You
people,
are great at spoilers.
I guess know what you're going to shoot before you go out and buy some of the equipment. I have an intervalometer that's stuffed in my closet. I don't even use it anymore for single shots because on the R5,
That's
I
built
always,
in.
even my cable release, I just touch the screen very lightly and it takes the
Sure.
picture.
Sure, yes, those are great. And I've noticed that about half the people have that technology, but there's still half the people who don't, so I always try to include it because your camera may not have it. And your single shots, you'll go out and you'll start doing single shots, but you'll quickly move to stacking. Once you get in your first post-processing and you try to raise your exposure, you're gonna be like, ooh, I need to start stacking. So you pretty quickly move into that intervalometer after your first couple nights.
Yeah, I still use a separate one, but I think my camera has it built in, but I still like, because I have it programmed for one set use, and it's just so handy that way. But
Yes, and even my older one has one built in, but it's glitchy and it doesn't work all the time. So I still have
right,
external.
yeah.
My R5 is great, but my 60 Mark II is horrible. So
Yeah, they can be handy. So yeah. With stacking, when shooting multiple images, how do you account for star movement in relation to the foreground? So I take it we had Rick Lankinus. Pretty bad
Rick,
at names.
hey.
Sorry.
Hey, Rick. He's my friend. Hey, no, great question. So whenever when you're like, say you're going out and you've got a low level light on your foreground and you're taking 10 shots, that you want to stack for the sky. When you go into post-processing software like Sequator or Starry Landscape Stacker, it's going to say, hey, is this the sky? And it's going to mask the sky and it's only going to move that portion. Whatever you tell it to move, it's only going to move that portion and it'll keep your foreground still. So you don't have to worrying about the movement.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure about it. I knew I would probably be masking it or something.
Yes. The stacking software does really good with that. And kind of like, hey, is this the sky? And you can go in and be like, you missed some here and you missed some here, and fix it for it. But it generally does pretty good.
Okay. That's really it. For some reason, this group is quiet today.
Maybe overwhelmed.
Yeah, they're trying to absorb it. Well, and that's the nice part about having this on YouTube. Everybody can go back and review it and get all that good information and slow it down and get better notes. That's why I love being able to put it on YouTube. But we have a ton of people that just really love the presentation. Somebody's asking what's an intervalometer. If you want to try to explain it, I know I could.
It's just a trigger essentially that you can, like I said, there's either some built in the camera or you can just attach. It looks like a little remote, and all you do is it just helps you become even lazier with your photography. So if you're taking 25 images in a row instead of sitting there hitting your shutter 25 times, you can just program into the intervalometer to take 25 shots with this much space between each photo so my SD card can read it, and then just hit play and we'll set back and it'll take your 25 shots in a row for you so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I really love it because, you just set it up
just
once.
Lazy. Yeah, set up once, walk away. You can even put it on infinity and just let it rock all night and just walk away.
Yeah, and that way you can have a couple cameras going at the same time.
Exactly.
Do multiple things. So I love my intervalometer, whether it's in the camera or the external one. I shoot a lot of long exposures during the day with neutral density filters, so I have an intervalometer just set to do 1 minute exposures, and it takes 3 of them with a break in between each, and I don't have to sit there and wait for that minute to end. So
yeah, and especially like if you get distracted by something, you're like, oh man, it's a minute and a half,
Yeah, so it works great for me. Anybody else have any questions? I know I was looking on her website and she's got a lot of great information in there, so make sure you check out her website.
Lots of freebies. Lots of freebies.
ton of great
And
information, and I know a lot of people will be watching this several times and practicing and stuff like that. So it should be fun.
Good, good. Well, I hope so. And I'm open. So obviously, I'm pretty sure my contact information you said was on an email. So if you are watching this and you do have a question, just shoot me an email. I'll gladly answer anything I can.
Thank you.
yeah, and I've been doing this for a while, and yet I pick up every time I listen, I pick up more good information. I got to check out Planet Pro. That sounds like a good app.
It's fun. Yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve to it, but it's once you get the basis of it, it's pretty self-explanatory and
Yeah.
fun to work in.
Yeah, I've been trying to learn Planet Pro lately, and the tutorial videos are hard. And have you had a good source for where to learn how to use it?
Yes, my mentor actually was very pivotal in teaching me how to work Planet Pro. And I'm trying to figure out if he has any kind of information out there on it. I know he was wanting to teach a class on it at one point. So he was very pivotal in just teaching me in person how it worked. It's kind of one of those where it's like if you got to get in there and just play, and you just kind of got to figure out and just hit the buttons and see where it takes you and just kind of go from there. I really only will open it up and like I said, it looks like Google Maps. I'll put in where I want to go and I'll drop my pin, just place my finger and drop down where I want to be. And then there's a little thing over there that says set your camera scene. So it shows my scene and then it shows where the Milky Way will be, and I can kind of drag my finger across and see the time, and then I can go to virtual reality and I can see where it'll be, and I can drag my finger there too. And it'll move the Milky Way across my scene. So there's, that's about the most I will sit there and kind of delve into it or go through the different ephemeris features and use it the same. But I know it's kind of like Photoshop. There's a million things you can do in that. So it can be overwhelming for sure.
Yeah, one of the features that I like in Planet Pro that I haven't learned how to use yet is to be able to do the augmented reality using Street View on Google Maps. And
Oh,
the
wow.
Photo Pills engineers, 4 or 5 years ago about that feature, and they were talking about adding it, but as of yet they haven't.
Yes. And I want to say it was Photo Pills was designed by photographers, but Planet Pro was designed by an astronomer. So that kind of tells you the difference of like the advancements of each one, right? Like, so it's a whole other world with Planet Pro versus Photo Pills. They both have their functions.
I think the guy's name that created Planet Pro is in San Diego, where I used to live, and he was real popular in the community. But his name was Genji, or I don't remember his name, but he's a software engineer more than an actual astronomer. He might be a combination of both.
Yeah, and I'm sure they ping-ponged a lot off of astronomers to help build because it is what it can do is so far advanced. You know what I mean? It makes Photo Pills look like a toy, essentially, on what all it can do. It really does. Like, you can really get in there and do some really neat things with it.
Yeah, Photo Pills is pretty good too, though. What you were showing when I've done Photo Pills presentation, I did it at Jeff's club. I didn't go into the depth of all the different pills, but you showed the depth of field calculator, and there's a lot of pills that when I just go into the basics of it, I go into the planner. But yeah, I like that you showed some of the other pills like that.
Yeah, that's the ones that I have found I use more than any others, and so I really like the hyperfocal distance. I really like that depth of field calculator. That thing is so neat.
Yeah.
And it's really handy to have. People just don't realize it.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. I've shot night skies all over the world, and the darkest skies that I have ever come across was about 3 hours south of San Diego down on the Mexican coast. Where are the darkest skies that you've ever seen?
New Mexico and Utah. Those are some of the really dark skies. When I go out to the Bisti Badlands, we're in a Bortle 1, and it is dark. You know what I mean? It's super dark. And so the detail that you can actually see with the naked eye with the Milky Way is just incredible. Usually you can just see the the cloud, right? Like the one band strip of cloud. But this you could actually see the other side of the Dark Horse Nebula. You could actually see this part of the Milky Way with your naked eye, you know. So you were
Yeah.
just it's just incredible to get out there. I actually had an attendee last year in a workshop because we have a few hour gap, so people will just go sit in their car and take a nap while we wait for the stars to align, you know. And so I went to go wake him up, and I tapped on his car window, and he, of course, it was like bug splattered windshield, and he usually wears glasses, and he sat up and he looked. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I can see the Milky Way through my dirty windshield without my glasses." It's like that, right? You know. So
Yeah, it's awe-inspiring.
it is.
It just the way it makes you feel when you see that is with a naked eye is just amazing.
And one place that's really neat, it's not so much the darkest skies, it's just one of the neatest places I've experienced the Milky Way is the salt plains in Oklahoma, which most people don't even know exist, right? But I'll go teach there once a year, and it's the only place where obviously Oklahoma is very flat, so the horizon's actually below your eyes. And so the stars start below your eyes, and it's flat 360 degrees around you. And so you can watch the Milky Way from below your eye from one horizon and rainbow it all the way across to the north to below your eyes behind you. So it's just you feel like you have a weighted blanket. You're like you're in like a planetarium or something. Like there's just this huge blanket of stars over you, and it's overwhelming. It's one of the most overwhelming feelings I've ever had. So
Where in Arkansas is the? I didn't know there were salt flats in Arkansas.
they're in Oklahoma.
Oh, in Oklahoma.
Hmm.
Oh, pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool things in Oklahoma most people don't know exist. So that's why I'll go and teach there once a year because I'm like, look at all these cool places.
At the PSA headquarters in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
One thing
Yeah,
that
and
surprised me as I took a sea cruise down in the Caribbean and that I was actually surprised how clear the skies were down there too. It's like this would be great to take pictures from a cruise ship, but it's like I don't know how with the boat moving and the waves.
That'd
It's
be
like
tough.
it would
It's like
be.
that'd be very tough. No, I've heard. I actually have always wanted to go down to the Keys area to shoot and stuff, but I hear a lot of the problem down there is humidity off, right? And the
Yeah.
humidity kind of builds this band into the horizon, which blocks a lot of the stars, and so a lot of people have issues with it then. But I've always wanted to go down somewhere, you know, in the Caribbean and shoot. I think it'd be beautiful.
It's
Well,
gonna
yeah,
be hot
and
and steamy.
that's a big
yeah,
problem
great,
there too with
great.
shooting moonrise over Lake Michigan. In the summertime, there's so much haze coming up off the water that it's very difficult to get the moonrise on the horizon.
Yeah.
That's why we love going west where the air's dry.
Yeah.
So, any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Good presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, really interesting. And unfortunately, we're getting less and less dark skies around here. Closest is for us, Door County, and it's now down to one small little section. Um,
Y'all need a
and
good dark sky club up there. Advocacy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was on a planning commission for 17 years in my village here, and one of the things I pushed for was dark skies because we had so many people with lights shining up, and we actually got a few ordinances through where we limited the amount of light, and all the light had to shine down, not up.
That's what I
And
love.
it was a start, but it certainly didn't, doesn't get far. Now I moved to another village right just 10 miles away, and they have no idea of what dark skies would be like.
Yes, most people
Unfortunately,
don't.
it's just a big
Unfortunately.
glowing dome. But yeah, at least there's places up north for us to be able to get dark skies yet that are
Yes.
Well,
halfway
that
decent.
map you showed on your presentation of the light pollution was very descriptive. It
Yes.
showed the whole eastern side of the United States that's lit up and the
Yep.
western side not so much.
And that's why we will, I'll see if I can get to it. This is why we go west. You know what I mean? This is why I'm always going to the west because it's like there's no point. You can actually see, let me get to it here. Come on. There's like a line of demarcation straight down the country. And
Yeah.
It's sad because it's like there's one little pocket in Arkansas, and that's our Buffalo National River, which is an international dark sky park. Here it is. Oh, oh, there we go. So you can actually see like right here. And so this is why everybody goes to this section to shoot night skies. But you can even see we're starting to lose it. You got Phoenix and Tucson. You've got, areas here.
Denver probably,
Yeah,
or
Denver.
So there's
Salt
still
Lake City.
pockets.
Yeah, we used to go in Southern California. Everybody tries to go up to the desert, Anza Borrega Park, which you might have been there. But I found that one of the problems with going east of the city, LA and San Diego, is airplanes. And when we went south down Baja, you notice there's no light down there at all.
Mhm.
And we don't have the problem of the airplanes going over.
That's smart. Very smart. And see, like even Arizona is not my favorite place to shoot just because if you shoot south, look what you're looking into. You know what I mean? So I will come up here and I'll be in New Mexico and I'll be in this pocket here, or we'll be kind of down in this pocket here.
Yeah.
Utah is a great state. Again, you only really have stuff up north that you got to worry about Salt Lake City because pretty much all down here is dark. Because all get
Yeah,
out.
Milwaukee is one of the worst places because you have to shoot the Milky Way, you have to shoot south, and south of us is Chicago.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to shoot the Milky Way, and that's why you got to get up to Door County or up to the Upper Peninsula, because there's so much light to
Even
the
Door
south.
County.
Nevada,
Yeah, even Door County,
County.
you have so much light all around it in the one small section of dark sky.
Yeah.
I like northern Minnesota on the north shore of Lake Superior.
Ooh.
That's pretty decent, and got some nice places to shoot, and you don't have as much light going south.
Yes,
But
that's
it's
the other
looking
thing.
like we're going to have to head to Canada next. So
Yep, exactly. And that's the other thing too. When you look at that Bortle scale, always look at what direction you're shooting into. You know what I mean? You want to be into a darker section, not a brighter section. So you might be in a Bortle 2, but you could be facing into a Bortle 4 or 5, and that's going to ruin your shot. So you need to be sure you're like at a 2 facing into a 1, essentially, which matters. So Nevada is a really great resource, a really quirky area to go because you've got like the international car forest, which is a really weird art installation that you can go out to in the middle of the night and shoot. You've got Rhyolite, Death Valley, that kind of area there, which is really fun to shoot. And so there's just some interesting, quirky little spots you can go and have fun with in the night, but it's a weird area. It's very weird. Weird vibes.
When you mentioned about light pollution, I remember flying from Orlando back to Chicago, and like what you mentioned is you could just see all the city and that's just like glowing.
Yep. It's sad.
yeah, and it's an easy enough pollution to help reduce.
It's instant.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we don't have to have a cleanup effort. We ain't got to do nothing. All we got to do is flip a switch. And it's done.
There's some technology that they're talking about. They've been talking about developing. They were talking about developing a system where lights actually flash. When you put in city lights, they flash and they're so fast that you can't tell it. But the astronomers and people who need dark skies can program to get the flash in between the flashes. And it actually makes it look like a dark sky. And if cities all over the United States or all over the world pick that up, it could help with a light pollution problem. I don't know how far along they are in developing these ideas.
Interesting.
It's an interesting idea.
It's
be interesting to also see the effect of what that would do to the human body. You know what I mean? Like having light flashing, would that do a psychological effect that we wouldn't know? You know what I mean? Like how would that affect us? So it's
unknowingly. Apparently, they can do it in such a way that you can't really see it. But I mean, we do that when we go to the movie theater. They're flashing.
Yeah. Most of the LED lights are flashing as it is too. So you'll notice that at times. But the simplest is just a shield to keep the light from going up and
Yeah.
just pointing down.
Yeah.
That was the big thing we did in our village, was just to stop people to pointing lights up and just making sure they pointed down.
Yeah, there ain't nothing
And
up there you're trying to watch anyway. You're trying
Yeah,
to see down here.
why are you lighting up the whole area when all you need are lights shining downwards to reduce a lot of the night skylight? So that's how we did it, and I think you could keep doing that all around, because why are you lighting up, the sky? That's wasted light.
Very much so.
I think it's for ET. It's like, hey, ET, come home.
Yeah, yeah. No. Well, Brendan, thank you. This was really a great talk. I know we had a good number of people here today, and even on a nice sunny day for Wisconsin, everybody's can get out on I didn't actually realize this was a holiday weekend until a couple days ago. This one snuck up on me completely, but so I know we lost a number of people that are either heading to their cabins or whatever for the weekend, but no, it was great. We've got it on YouTube so everybody can rewatch it. We actually had 3 people just watching it on YouTube themselves. So
good.
So we're picking up more people. I keep telling everybody subscribe to the Wacko YouTube channel, and we keep getting more, trying all the different ways to get people to do it. But so thank you for coming.
Thank you guys for having me.
Have a great weekend. You're free to stick around. We'll go until we sort of run out of questions, and then we're going to stop. But so if anybody in the group has any regular questions on photography, we'll open it up to that. If not, we'll just end up ending early so that we can all go outside and do some gardening or whatever has to happen.
Cut grass.
Yeah. I did that yesterday for 4 hours, so I'm trying not to cut grass this week anymore.
My problem's not grass, it's dandelions. Okay.
Oh, but see, Hubert, I love dandelions.
I do too, but my wife doesn't.
Oh, yeah. My neighbors hate me because I used to grow, my whole lawn would be yellow with dandelions.
My bearded dragon would be so happy. She loves dandelions. So.
Yeah, yeah. I had for the longest time I had an apple orchard, and dandelions were the way that we got bees into the apple trees.
Oh yeah.
And so we learned to love dandelions. But yeah, the neighbors who were spraying their lawn with all these chemicals to get rid of them hated me because it blew right towards them.
Urban life. I live in the country. I got 2 acres and cornfields all around me, so there's nobody to object other than my bride. So
yeah.
I don't care about it. I just, in fact, I've been resisting to mow them because of the bee thing, but I guess I've got to go out today and get it done, I guess. So almost a month, man. So.
Yeah, you got pretty close.
Yeah.
No mow me.
Hey, Jeff, I got a question for you.
Sure.
On your 360 camera, that you and I have, and that, what do you think on the quality? I'm not sure. Are you using Insta360 software or?
Yeah. I'm just using the phone software to process the images.
What do you think about the quality? Because I've been trying to do the live concert photography at night. It just seems like the quality's not that great.
Well, doing a concert at night with a low light, that camera is not really set up for low light too well.
Even though it's I think ours is f2, it goes down to 2.
Most of your concert lighting is pretty dim.
Yeah.
So it may have a hard time. You certainly can try it, and if you can, I haven't found a way to process the images other than using Insta360's processing software. Lightroom and Photoshop don't see the image.
Have you done, are you just doing the video, or have you done a few pictures?
I've been doing just stills. I haven't played with video yet.
Okay, because I'm doing more video, a few of the pictures. Now, when you do the pictures, are you doing the 360 view, or are you
Yeah.
doing just the one? Okay.
Yeah, just the 360. So that's why I'm stuck with Insta360 software, trying to figure out how to get Photoshop to recognize it, because I know Photoshop should be able to recognize it. But
They got the, I think it's the Premiere, I forget, for the video capability.
yeah, I think Premiere Pro might be
Yes.
able to handle the video editing of that. But I haven't tried it. I haven't gotten into video. I haven't played with the 360 camera enough yet. It's fun. It's a lot of fun to play with, but it's got limited uses. I got it so that I could shoot the interiors of rooms, of buildings for architectural use.
When I do my, a few people have been asking to do airplanes and that, so I figure I'd get the 360 Insta camera video, because Pilatus contacted me, and at the time I didn't have a 360 camera, so I thought by getting this, you know, it could advance my career a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good start with the 360, but it's got a lot of limitations. You know, for the price, it's not bad. The
Yeah.
real good ones that they have, you know, are into the $10,000, $15,000 price range.
Well,
We're talking a $500 camera. It does a pretty good job though for $500.
yeah, mine with tax and that, it was
Yeah.
$600. Yeah. So,
Yep.
but yeah, I want to get
Um,
better on that.
Once I figure it out more, I'll probably do a demo here on Digital Forum. People might be interested in what you can do with the 360 camera. It's sort of fun.
Yeah. You know, for the music, the sound doesn't sound that great with music, so I could probably always get more of a mic that's designed where I can control the volume and stuff better.
Yeah, if you use an external, what I would probably end up doing, if I was going to do sound and wanted decent quality, I would record it on an external sound device and then sync it up with the sound that's the camera picks up.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Cause I mean, actually, I'm not thinking I'm gonna have to do it if I want to do it that way,
Yeah.
because it's just all muffled and that, you know, and then with it being so loud, it's just nothing but distortion.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you would have to do that. Brian wants to know, Brian, it's the Insta360 camera. I have the X4. Clint has the brand new one, the X5. It's just a small camera you can either hold in your hand, or Clint had a
Yeah, I got
stick
it.
that you can hold it on. I actually use a small light stand that I put it on so that I don't have to be in the picture. Oh, yeah, yeah, yours
Yeah,
has
it's
a
a little hard
stand
to-
on the bottom too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the selfie stick, you know, with the stand, and then it expands to, I think I measured about like 48 inches high. So that would be good for, you know, let's say if people wanted, you know, to do real estate, I can do a little bit. Granted, I'm not going to get the same quality as like what you mentioned about a $10,000 360 camera. But it seems like the one, how I look under Zillow, I was actually kind of surprised. I'm like, well, that kind of looks like similar to my X5, my Insta360 X5.
A lot of people are using it because it's an inexpensive way to get a 360 shot inside. High quality realtors are using better quality cameras, of course.
Even though that mine, and I believe yours is also rated for 8K,
Yeah.
it just seems, you know, seemed like it could be sharper. It seemed like our mirrorless cameras and Sony's, Canon's.
Well, you got a different it's a smaller sensor.
Can make a huge difference, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a smaller sensor, so it's not quite as light. sensitive as the DSLRs or mirrorless cameras are. So it's got its limits, but on a, you know, with plenty of light, it works just fine. I don't expect low light to do real well, but you need to play with the programs that they have. Unfortunately, I don't think there's programs like Topaz that will interface with it to help for low light. But that's something I haven't had a chance to play with it yet. I mean, I bought it during Christmas time and I still have only shot 20 shots on it. So, we got somebody that just wanted to know anybody's thoughts on the new Fuji X half frame digital camera that just came out. Really small little digital camera. Looks sort of interesting. I haven't seen any pictures from it, but
Jeff, he also asked of any ideas on the tariffs, well, how that will affect the cost on cameras. I didn't know. I put in a link to a discussion and it went to the answered questions. I don't know if everybody else in the group can see that link once you've answered a question.
yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, undoubtedly camera prices and lens prices are starting to go up depending on, you know, where the cameras are being made. Fortunately, a lot of the cameras aren't being made in China. They're usually being made in a few other countries. I think Sony, half their stuff isn't being made in China. It's being made in other countries. So, but I just heard that the inexpensive Sony lenses are being made in China, and those are the ones that are going up about 15-20%. But who knows? This tariff stuff is just so screwy that it's on again, off again.
It changes by the day, so
Yeah. It's, as anything, it's just going to be passed on by the supplier to us, and that's all we can do is, deal with it. And hopefully,
going back to the question on that Fujifilm, that half frame camera. So I think that's getting targeted a little bit towards social media, because virtually you're just taking the vertical portion of your image. So
yeah.
I think it's going to be a pretty niche camera that's where they're shooting for.
What's a half digital?
Half frame. So
what?
It's 3x4.
Yeah.
It comes out 3x4, I think, and it's all JPEG. I don't think it shoots RAW, and it can tie to their printer that they have, so you could print directly off your phone to a small printer, a 3x4 printer kind of thing. It's more, to me, it seems like more of a fun toy for me, but that's about it.
You might as well use your phone then.
But I do think it's really towards social media aspect of photography, and it's going to be a pretty niche kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's small. That's
what would be the advantages of that over using your cell phone camera?
Yeah,
well, we've seen a little bit of a trend that people kind of going away from just using their smartphones to. There's been a resurgence in little point and shoot cameras. Like last weekend, I was carrying around my little Canon SX70. I mean, it's certainly more versatile than just your point and shoots, or than your phone cameras are. So. After coming down the road, I'm like, what the hell is
that? We're coming to visit you, Marty.
Sounds like they're driving right through my house. Anyway, I think that's one of the things kind of driving things like this half frame or resurgence of point and shoots, that people are looking for a little bit something more than just their digital cameras now. I mean, our smartphone cameras, where they do a great job, they do have their limits.
Yeah, I think that's where you see all the different camera companies bringing out the cameras with the screens that come all the way around, so that you can do the social media yet have all the control, and especially the sound, because the sound is probably the most important part if you're doing video on a camera. Cell phone sound just is so. You can add better microphones, that always helps, but yeah, there's a lot of different uses for all these different cameras. I just noticed Sony brought out a brand new, just strictly video camera. Well, they have a whole line of video cameras because they have the professional video cameras that they do. And they seem to be sort of shifting a little more to that. But anybody have anything else they want to talk about while we're going at it here? I keep losing the Q&A.
Yeah, it's been a pretty quiet bunch.
Yeah.
I know I had to do a photo shoot. We're selling an airplane at the hangar, and it's funny, this aircraft, the one guy kind of joked with me. He's like, oh, this doesn't need to be a glamour shot. I had my tripods, all my flashes and stuff like that out. And I told him, it's like, well, I want to make this airplane look like $1 million. It's not worth $1 million, but it's like, well, if we can get $1 million, it actually looks so good that it actually is, I will almost have to say false advertisement, because boy, does that look good.
No, yeah, that's what it takes sometimes to get it lit up just
And we all-
right.
You know, because this was like about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in that. So I had my flexible tripods on both sides, you know, kind of shooting, giving it some light underneath the wings and stuff like that. And I was actually really quite impressed. It's like, wow, this really turned out really nice.
Almost like you knew what you were doing, Clint.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, wow, I actually got a good shot.
Yeah. Nope, it's all depends on the time of day and when you shoot it and how you light it. So that's where a lot of people don't take the time to light things the way they should. And
At the
so you
beginning,
can-
when I was younger, you know, 20 years ago, I was like, I don't need a flash. Well, even in the daytime, that little flash makes a big difference, makes your picture pop. I mean, it just needs to be just a little subtle and
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, between that and the LED lights, if you don't like flash because you can't see where it's doing it, the LED light panels are really handy to put in a lot of different spots. And
It's nice for the LED, the tubes, the panels. Also, is ever since I got the modeling light on our flashes, boy, in low light, that makes a huge difference, because now you're lighting the subject, and now it has an easier ability to focus on what you want it to take a picture of.
yeah. Yeah. Back in the old days, we used to use light meters for all that stuff.
Well, they still technically do, right?
I still do when I shoot a portrait, when I have to shoot a portrait,
Yeah.
and I'm using studio lights, I'm still using a light meter. So you don't see that as much these days with some of the flash units you got available. But I'm still lugging around old flash units, so.
Yeah, I know that stuff gets heavy, and that, oh my gosh, I got my
Oh,
wagon.
it's-
I need a bigger wagon.
I had to decide whether I wanted to keep doing these portraits, because it takes 45 minutes just to set up to do a 20-minute portrait and then take it all down again.
No, it's time consuming. It's definitely time consuming with all the tripods that I had, you know, at the airport, you know, moving it here, you know, different positions, different angles, you know, shooting inside, outside. It's not a 5-minute project.
Nope. No. Can be a fun one though.
Yeah.
Especially if you can get a nice jet, Learjet, that would be fun.
Yeah, that would be nice, or a Gulfstream in that, but I wasn't shooting like that. I was shooting on ultralight. So if
Yeah.
anyone wants to buy an ultralight, it's for sale. You can get it probably a good deal for like $10,000.
I want to keep my feet on the ground these days. That's what drones are for.
And speaking of which, I'm still trying to find a way to get my hands on that new Mavic 4 Pro that apparently Adorama got a bunch of them and sold them out immediately, but the other camera shops the DJI just is not selling them in the United States right now.
Well,
That's-
gonna have to go to a different country.
I've thought about driving up to Canada but I'm not even sure if I go to a friend's house up in Canada. From us in Milwaukee, going across the lake on the ferry, we're 3.5 hours from Canada in Windsor on the other side of Detroit. But going up into Canada, I would be concerned about whether the customs would check them coming back across the
Oh, yeah.
border.
My concern too. Yep.
I even had problems when I crossed over with my camera equipment in that you're technically supposed to fill out a 4457, I believe, form in that. Like, well, we don't know if you really bought this up here or not. It was a kind of pain in the butt. I was kind of like, seriously? So, and then they were going to try and nail me for import tax too.
Yeah.
Really?
Even though that I bought it, here in the U.S. So it's.
I used to travel with that form filled out all the time with all my camera gear when I left the country. So that coming back, because I kept my gear in such good shape, they would sometimes think that you were buying it over there and then bringing it back in, and then you'd have to pay an import fee. So
I've never had that problem coming back into the United States when I've carried several cameras and a bunch of lenses, but it might be different coming into an airport where they expect people to be traveling with,
Yes.
with camera equipment, whereas going across the border in a car might be a little more questionable. Why are you bringing all this equipment in? I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
But you're
So
talking flying into airports, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I was flying in. I would fly down to Grand Cayman in the Caribbean for trips, and because it's a great spot for diving and all sorts of other things. And yeah, coming back, I would always have that form filled out ahead of time so that I could say, yeah, here it is, and now I just carry receipts to show that I had purchased the stuff here in the U.S. because you could buy stuff in Cayman at a cheaper price because they could import it cheaper, and then
Yeah,
you'd
that's a
have
good
to pay an
idea.
import fee coming back in.
The biggest problem I've had with cameras and traveling is I always carry my crucial equipment on board carry-on, but a lot of places especially if they're smaller planes, they limit the weight so much. I had that problem in New Zealand with trying to get on a plane and I was overweight. And so I asked them if I could take my big lens out and hang it around my neck, and they were okay. I took it out of my bag, and then they weighed the bag, and I was just a little bit over. So they waved me on through, said, go ahead. And when I got on the plane, I stepped up the stairs to where the flight attendant was, and I said, can I put this away? And she said, sure. So I opened my bag right there and put it back in my bag.
Yeah, yeah,
I use a photo vest in
Yeah.
a couple of situations where I thought if I'm going to be overweight, but there
Yeah.
again, and I scan all my receipts, so I have them in a file. So I just have to, if had got any questions at all about if I purchased or not, I have the scan of all the receipts, and of course the receipts have the serial numbers on them and all that kind of stuff like that. So
yeah,
I don't have to worry
Yeah,
about comparing on receipts and stuff. But
yeah. Back in the days that I'm talking about, we didn't have scanners and we
Yeah,
didn't have all
I know.
that stuff.
for sure.
So, but yeah, nowadays that's all I do. I need to do it for my insurance company, and so I've got all the receipts all in one spot anyhow. So it's easy enough to just grab and show people. But that's really all you need to do these days. But they're not asking that as much as they used to, unless you're coming from a country where you might be doing that more.
Well,
Talk
one
about
thing.
scanning.
One thing that.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say is like when Jeff was saying about the Cayman Islands, I love going down there. And when Drema was talking about bringing your camera equipment, my God, when I took Frontier down, I was right at the limit on weight and that with the baggage and that. It's like, well, all my camera equipment will add, let's say, another $75, another 75 pounds of camera equipment. It adds up quick in that.
Well, you got to just make it look like the camera bag's real light, because I have yet to see an airline that has weighed your baggage that you're carrying on.
Oh, yeah.
Usually it needs to fit into that size that will fit in the overhead compartment.
Yeah.
But you definitely got to make it look like it's light, even though it's heavy. I've come on with 50, 60 pounds worth of camera gear, and I would throw it up in that upper bin like it was nothing.
Yeah.
But trying to lug it around the airport, I go, why am I carrying all this stuff?
Yeah, domestically, I don't think I've ever seen them weigh, but they did it, like I said, they did it in New Zealand. And I've also seen it on some of the flights around the continent in Africa when they have the smaller planes.
Yeah, I think, and I don't do really anything internationally, but I hear they do way more on the international planes than they do domestic.
Well, what's funny is that O'Hara, I had to go to the farthest terminal you can go, and that it's like I must have walked like 10 miles to the place. Like, where is this place?
Yeah, that's why I like roller bags for camera gear. But I'd rather drive. If I can drive, I'll drive first before I fly, because then I can bring all the gear I want.
No, it's nice to have your own vehicle and that, I mean,
Yeah.
I know one time I did drive down to Sarasota. Then the last time is I flew down to Orlando to go on that cruise. I'm blowing this out of proportion. What took 20 hours of driving, it only took like 2 hours of flying to get down there. So
But you got to add the 3 hours before the flight and the 2 hours after the flight.
Oh, I know. I hate that. Oh my God! I thought, it's like, okay, go over here and get your cavity checked, and that it was ridiculous on all being strip search and everything. It's like I hate flying, unless you have your own airplane, then you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, I won't forget the one time I flew down to Florida, and Ken was with me. They took my camera bag completely apart, including the dividers out of the bag. So all I had was a pile of equipment, the dividers, and the camera bag.
Wow.
And I was there for an hour and a half just having them check the bag. And then they just handed me the bin with all the stuff and then the bag. And I had to put it all back together again. And if I hadn't planned 3 hours in advance, and Ken just sat there and shook his head, because he went right through without any problem. And he had as much equipment as I had. But I guess I had put my cards into a waterproof case. And I guess that case looked like it was, when it went through the x-ray machine, as if it was explosives. And then for some reason, when they did the swab test, it showed up with explosives residue of some sort. So they really went through it. And the way they handled that gear, I was surprised I got any of it still working, because she'd carry it with one hand and all the gear would slide down to the end. And then they just handed it to me, and they're, yep, you're fine, you can go. And that's when I asked them, well, what caused all the problem? Because I don't want to go through this again. And they showed me that it was my card case. That it was a Pelican waterproof one, that they were really nice because they slipped into a back pocket and it wouldn't wreck the cards at all. And they were waterproof. But yeah, they showed up bad on the x-ray. So I never used those again.
Don't try to fly home with some really pretty sand from Sanibel Island in a little jar from southern Florida, because they don't think that's white sand. You will get stopped. You will get searched. They will pour out your sand. They will test it. They will have drug dogs on you. Do not fly back with sand from southern Florida.
Oh boy.
Well, good thing I didn't buy that at the Cayman Islands. So you could buy the beach sand and that, So I'm glad I didn't buy that then.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my mom collected sand from everywhere she traveled, and she would bring it back in little pill bottles and that, but she would hide it in her regular luggage so nobody would ever really see it. And I don't know if that ever showed up on x-rays as something as bad, but yeah, it's amazing what will stop you at an airport, and you try to plan for everything. That's why I plan for 3 hours. I'd rather sit at the airport and get through TSA and relax and have something to eat and drink than try to rush and get there and have something bad like that happen, where you spend an hour just at TSA trying to get through.
Well, when I was at O'Hara, you could see some people, they were running behind. They were, I mean, like sprint runners, trying to make their airplane. And I agree
Yeah.
with you, Jeff. Get there 2-3 hours earlier. I'd rather be sitting there waiting than the opposite, like, oh, I just missed the airplane.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I have a pre-TSA, the pre-pass for my for flying, and if I was going overseas more, I do global entry as well, because that does help get you through a lot quicker.
I forget if it was the Cayman Islands or if it was Mexico. I didn't need my passport. They had face recognition, and then boom, like, wow, it's like I don't have to show my passport. So I was actually really surprised by that.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
getting to the point where you need a passport now to fly domestically, or I don't have the real ID driver's license, and so I carry my passport around.
Oh, yeah. Now you have to have that real ID. I carry a passport card with me everywhere because I bought it to get into Canada and Mexico, and I go, well, I might as well use it for other things, and it's great for voting and great for flying. You just hand them that card.
Yeah, I got a
Usually.
story about that. What's funny is 2 times I went to Canada without, but I didn't even have a passport, and you were required it. Oh, that was a story, and that.
Yeah.
But you had to go through immigration and that. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, usually it's pretty simple. I've hardly ever had to show anything to get into Canada.
Going into Canada is no problem. Coming back, it's like I
Coming
don't know
back
what it
is
is.
the problem.
It's like I'm a U.S. citizen. It's like, seriously?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Oh.
probably worse right now.
But I do love Canada. I mean, there's great places to take photography up there.
Yeah, there's some nice waterfalls up just across the border from Minnesota that we go to. So, yeah. Well, unless anybody has anything else, since we're just sort of gabbing away, I think we'll just call it a day. And thank Brennen for her great presentation.
Fantastic job.
And really appreciate that. Everybody remember, it is on YouTube, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a lot of different speakers every month for some of the new people here. So I'm working on, we have Jim Karofsky next month talking about lighting a photograph using Photoshop and Lightroom. So that should be really interesting. It's a different way of looking at your photos and processing them, since really every image needs to be processed. I'm working on July and August. I just haven't had the time to find some good speakers, so hopefully I can find somebody for July and August. I'm trying to find a photo travel person, maybe. Trying to pick up different, just like we did this night sky stuff, trying to expand everybody's horizon on the different types of education that's available and different types of photography, because I've always been a general photographer. I like a little bit of everything. I'm not an expert in any of it, but I know a lot about all of it. So I like to keep finding different types of photographers. So we'll see what else we can find and do that.
Jeff, what I think is by doing all sorts of different types of photography, I think it makes you a better photographer. I think it makes you a better for technique in that. Let's say if you're always let's just say taking pictures of, let's say, waterfalls or portrait shots, you're not really growing. So I think with the different varieties, I think it makes you a better photographer, but better photographer. It's like, you know what, I can use part of these same skills, what I learned in, let's say, portrait shots.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, you always can keep learning. I keep learning even after 42 years of photography. So it's amazing what I still pick up. And there are things that I learned back 42 years ago that I still use today for shooting, which instead of using all these high-speed camera techniques, I just shoot at a slower speed.
That's why I keep my Kelby 1H here, because there's always little something I want to look it up, and they seem to cover the gamut pretty good there for something to help without searching YouTube.
Yep.
I don't know. It's a great resource, but it gets a little crazy at times.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Okay,
all right.
Take care, guys.
Yeah, everybody have a good Memorial weekend, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Time to go cut the lawn.
I'll wait till Monday or Tuesday, right before it rains.
Yeah.
These dandelions, daffodils or whatever,